Welcome to Breaking Barriers in Property Management, Leading, Thriving, and Inspiring. I'm your host, Sheila Greene, CEO, mentor, and longtime advocate for building stronger, more confident leaders in our industry. Here, we're going to dive into real conversations about leadership, growth, and the lessons that help us break barriers, lift each other, and thrive in property management. Whether you're just starting your career or you've already leading the way, you're in the right place. Let's get started. My personal story. Let me take you back to one of my very first leadership roles. I remember walking into a meeting, clipboard in my hand, my heart was pounding, feeling like everyone in the room had it all figured out except me. I thought leadership meant having all the answers, being the smartest, being perfect. What I didn't realize was that leadership has a whole lot more to do with presence than perfection. I made a lot of mistakes in those early years, overthinking, under-communicating, trying to be everything for everyone. But through those mistakes came the most important lessons of my leadership journey. Mistakes that I've made have taught me more than success. I once completely botched a presentation. I was so nervous, rushed, trying to sound smart instead of being real. It taught me, don't perform, you need to connect. And since then, my best leadership moments have come when I speak from the heart and not from a script. So why do mistakes teach us more? Well, they force reflection, and success feels good, but it rarely makes us pause. Mistakes stop us in our tracks, and they make us examine our habits, our decisions, and our leadership style. Missing deadlines is an example because you overpromise leads to better time management and boundary settings. For me, trying to do everything on my properties, it made it really difficult for me to hit some of my deadlines, or I would get so stressed out about having to meet an important deadline that it just would get overwhelming, and then you get stressed out, and then it affected everything that happened, at home with my kids. So that was like a lesson for me to learn how to better time manage what I had going on in my day and prioritizing things that were on a deadline. Mistakes also builds resilience. Mistakes hurt, and that's exactly why they make us tougher. You learn, you can recover, you reset, you still move forward, which becomes your leadership superpower. I survived that, so I can handle this. That is also very tough pill to swallow sometimes because it does hurt. I always tease my employees that back in the day when I was a manager, we didn't have computers, and we had fax machines, and we had handwritten guest cards, and we had to write thank you notes and send them in snail mail. Now we have technology, and we can text, and we can send thank you emails, and there's all this stuff that I had to do the hard way versus how technology has made their life a lot easier when they're on site. So learning the way that we did back in the day, that was definitely a harder way to manage properties. Mistakes also teach us humility. So when you mess up, you learn to own it. You apologize, you correct it, and the humility makes people trust you more and not less. It also sharpens your instinct. After falling into a leadership trap once, poor delegation, micromanagement, staying silent too long, you develop sharper instincts and you recognize red flags faster next time. This is a mistake that even in my current position over the last 3 years, I quickly recognize now red flags and when we need to course correct and change things so that I go, oh, we've already been here before, let's don't do that again. So it is something that you learn no matter where you're at in your position. I can tell you that this is one of the things that I have really dealt with and sharpened up on over the last couple of years from situations that happened that maybe I waited too long to react to. Now, when a red flag comes up, it's like I'm ready to react to that, and let's figure out how we're going to not let it get so far. Mentorship matters. Mentorship has meant so much to me, especially over the last 10 years of my career. One thing I wish I understood sooner is the power of mentorship. For a long time, I didn't ask for help. I didn't know who to turn to. Now I know. You don't grow alone. You find someone who's a few steps ahead, and just as importantly, be that person for someone else. Mentorship is leadership. It's legacy. I have had several mentors in my career. One was Karen Jan Tiffin, and that was back in my Red Lobster days. She taught me how to take control of situations when I felt like I was out of control. She always said, you pick one thing and you fix it. And that one thing leads to the next thing that leads to the next thing. Another mentor that I had is Elizabeth Francisco. She was the founder of Resman, which is the property management software that we currently use in our company. And I remember her talking to a group of ladies that we worked with, and she said that she had listened to a speaker that she was female, and she was explaining why men made more money than women and why men were more likely to be promoted. She said that women hold themselves back because they're looking for security. They're not willing to take the risk that men are willing to take. Women aren't as likely to do that. They want security. They want to feed their family. They want to know that they have, a check coming in. And that does hold us back. So one thing that I changed after Elizabeth said that, and this is the point that I became the VP of operations for another company, was that we need to be fearless. And you can't be scared to step outside your comfort zone and think outside the box and put yourself out there. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? You're going to fail? Well, guess what? When you fail, you learn from it and it makes you better. It doesn't make you worse. And you have to be willing to take that risk. And that is kind of how I've grown into the position of being the CEO of Rainey Property Management, was not being scared to take that risk. I had kids in high school and going to college, and I was like, oh my gosh, please God, every single day, let me be able to do this. And I did. I was successful. Everything that I had learned in property management, all the way from leasing consultant to being a regional manager, was exactly what I needed to become the leader of a company so that I could help develop other employees into being the next leader in the industry. So lesson one for me was start before you're ready. If I waited until I felt ready, I would have missed some of the biggest growth moments of my career. Confidence isn't something that shows up before you lead. It's something that you build as you lead. You don't have to be fearless. You just have to be willing to take the first step. When I entered that conference room with my clipboard in hand and my notebook, it was very nerve-wracking because the leader of that company walked right by me when I tried to introduce myself. And it really made me not want to take that first step because that was very intimidating. Lesson two, confidence comes from actions. I used to think that confident people were born that way. What I've learned is that confidence is a skill and it's built through doing. Speaking up in a meeting, making a hard call, asking for help. Every time you act with courage, you grow. Even when you mess up, especially when you mess up. Just like I was saying in lesson one, the first meeting that I had when I broke into property management, the owner of the company, she walked right by me when I tried to introduce myself. And so the first few times that I had to go to the property management meeting, wow, it was very intimidating. And I had ideas that I wanted to throw out there and things that were working for my property, but I didn't want to say it because I was concerned that I would be embarrassed or that she wouldn't agree or just kind of shut me down in front of everybody. Over time, because I did end up working for that company for 10 years, I learned to overcome that. I started putting myself out there and I learned how to deal with different personalities. So as I continued to go to these manager meetings, I built that. Like, I learned how to put myself out there. And then if things got shot down, I just kind of accepted it as, that's not the right thing right now, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I shouldn't stop putting myself out there. So one of the things that I've done at Rainey is that I've started a mentorship group that I opened up to my property managers. And it was very interesting to see that they had some of the very same struggles that I had when I was a manager myself. The confidence, not wanting to put themselves out there, the fear of being judged, getting out of that comfort zone. So that has been very enlightening for me, because in having conversation and sharing my experiences with them, I've helped them to overcome some of the exact same issues, and they get that support that I did not. Lesson 3, leadership is service, not status. Early on, I equated leadership with climbing the ladder, titles, power, but real leadership is about lifting up others, creating space for your team to thrive, being steady when things go sideways. It's not about being in charge, it's about taking care of the people in your charge. That was so hard for me, because for me, leadership was, you're gonna lead by example, and I'm gonna be in the mix, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do that. And then what happens is that I was impatient, and no one was ever gonna do it the way that I wanted it done, or no one was ever going to do it as fast as I could do it. And by the time I explained to someone how to do it, I could have already have had it done myself. Those are like really bad mindsets for leadership. And over the years, I have learned that it is so important for you to develop your people. You had to make mistakes to get where you're at. I certainly did. And you have to allow your people to make mistakes, and you're there to coach and direct them, to empower them to do their job and to think outside the box, because everybody brings something different to the table. That was one of the harder lessons that I had to learn, and it is very empowering to allow somebody to do their job. I can tell you, recently I had an employee who was kind of shocked because they came to me about something that they thought was pretty major, and I was like, well, what do you think? And they told me, and I said, okay, go do it. Why are you asking me? Like, go do it. That's a great idea. And that is empowering them to go and make decisions and to run their department, and that you're not micromanaging it. Advice to my younger self. If I could sit down with the 25-year-old Sheila, I would tell her, you don't have to prove anything. You don't have to be the loudest voice in the room. You just have to show up consistently, authentically, and with purpose. I would remind her that her voice matters, that mistakes don't define her, that leading well doesn't mean doing it all. It means doing what matters most. And that has been a lesson that has taken me years to really learn. And it is definitely a lesson that all women should learn, because when you make a mistake, you don't shut down. Get up, you say, I made a mistake, let's change it and let's fix it, and we move on. So here's what I want you to take away from this episode. Start before you're ready. Confidence comes from doing, not waiting. And leadership is about service, not status. If this episode spoke to you, I'd love to hear your own I wish I knew moments. Message me, leave a comment, or tag me in your story. And don't forget to follow and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. We're just getting started. Until next time, keep leading, keep thriving, and keep inspiring.